Hey guys, it's been 2 weeks since we last met, since you've had a lesson. I hope things are going well. I hope, things are maybe getting a little more in rhythm for you. I know now we have the crazy election, right? And who knows what's going to happen with that. But we do know that no matter who is elected, God is under control. So really, we'll be okay no matter what. So since it's been a while, I'll recap, but there's not a ton to recap. We got Moses, who's wandering around with the Israelites. They've gotten the covenant. They've got the ark of the covenant. They have the 10 commandments, and now they're wandering around looking for the promised land, right? So they're still wandering around. Now it's been 500 years since God promised Abraham about the promised land, the land of milk and honey. So finally they get to this place called Canaan, and they're like, wow, that's really nice. And so Moses sent in two guys, Joshua and Caleb, to go check it out. And they said, wow, it looks really good. Like, it looks really good. The only problem is there's like these giants that live there and whatever. And Joshua was like, but it's fine. If we go in there with God on our side, we'll be fine. But the leaders of there, so like Moses and the head people, were like, are you crazy? And they just about executed him. They were so mad at him for even bringing up going to face giants. So Joshua had a lot of faith, but the leader's faith was kind of weaning a little. It also didn't help that they were getting sick of just traveling. And all they had was manna, and they were getting annoyed with all the manna. So finally God's like, fine, I will send you. They were like, we want meat. I want meat. And so God's like, fine, I will give you meat. And he sent all these quails, like so many quails. And a quail is a type of bird, for those who don't know. That's all they had for a month straight. And it was, they said it's coming out of their nostrils. It was so much meat. So they're getting annoyed. So I'm sure by Joshua suggesting like we go face these giants, they were like, well, this annoyed God, and God sent them to wander for another 40 years. And at one point they ran out of water, and God said, Moses, go speak to this rock, and I will turn it into water. Well, Moses did that, but he also kind of like hit it with the stick a little bit, like, I'm not quite so sure speaking to it is going to do enough. So he hit it with his stick, and that God was like, that's not what I told you to do. So that made him mad. And by now, Moses is older, right? So he's getting up there in age, and God said, well, as a punishment, I will let you see the promised land, but you cannot enter it. And so Moses went up on a hill, and first he appoints Joshua to be in charge. And he went up on a hill and he saw the promised land, and he ended up dying. So we didn't get to see it. Now, what happens? I'm going to show a video for what happens after that. It's like the next lesson. So.
After Moses died, God gave Joshua the job of leading the Israelites. The first thing he did was send spies into Jericho, a city Israel was about to invade. While they were there, the two spies hid in the home of a woman named Rahab, who was a prostitute. That day, the king of Jericho heard about the spies, but Rahab hid the two spies on her roof and told the king's messengers that the spies had already left and she didn't know where they were. Then, when it was safe, she lowered the men down to the ground using a rope. Days later, Joshua led his army to the city of Jericho. They marched around the walls of the city for 7 days. Then, on the seventh day, they marched around the walls 7 times, blew their trumpets, and let out a loud shout. When they did, the walls of the city completely collapsed, and Israel's army charged in and conquered the city, burned the city to the ground, and killed every man, woman, child, and animal in the city, except for Rahab and her family. For years, Joshua and the Israelites marched through the Promised Land, defeating their enemies, killing every living thing in each city, and dedicating their victories to God. Eventually, the Israelites took control of much of the Promised Land. Finally, when he was very old, Joshua gathered all of the leaders of Israel around him. Just like Moses did, he reminded everyone of all the things God had done for them. Then, he placed a large stone under an oak tree as a reminder to all to follow the laws of God.
Okay, so that's the summary of all the things that happened and how they got into the promised land. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, wait, God really said go over and just take over these people's city? And that sounds incredibly not the way Jesus would teach, correct? Yes, I would agree. And that's why I did some research. And so way back when God made this promise and said they could have the promised land, he also said this, and it's in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 9:4. After the Lord your God has driven them out before you, do not say to yourself, the Lord has brought me here to take possession of this land because of my righteousness. No, this is on account of the wickedness of the nations that the Lord is going to drive them out before you. It is not because of your righteousness or your integrity that you are going to take possession of the land. But on account of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God will drive them out before you to accomplish what he swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So when you do a little bit of research about it, the people in this land were not good people. They had very horrific practices that they did. They were just not a good bunch. And I mean, so God didn't just say, hey, this one's really great, you can have this land, and because it's good. It was a case of like when he wiped out when he flooded the earth and saved Noah, but he also saved, or Joshua saved Rahab because she saw what was happening, and she knew of a God, and she knew she didn't want to be where she was, and she wanted something better. And so once again, God saw her and saved her through what she did for the other spies. So a couple of things I want you to think about, and you could email me back with these. What did you learn about God when it comes to the story of Rahab. Now, she wasn't a great person herself. She didn't exactly walk the straight and narrow all the time. But she did see that these people, the two spies, were of God. And what do you think about Joshua and him going against what everyone was saying and, going to a whole city and saying, we're just going to walk around it because that's what God said to do, even though it's not logical? And how does this apply to right now? Now, one thing I want you to think about is, I know, well, like, let's take quarantine, for example. There was a point in quarantine when my husband went to go get my car fixed because I had been hit by an ice chunk and there was like a part of my bumper that was broken up. And since I wasn't driving anywhere, he took it into the shop. And eventually I was like, dude, where's my car? It's been forever. And my husband is like, what are you talking about? Like, my car's been in the shop for like 4 weeks. This is ridiculous. And literally my husband was like, Stacia, it's been 5 days. It was crazy how I felt like it had been so long. So when I tend to get frustrated with the Israelites, because I'm like, are you not learning? Like, did you not remember what God had done for you? But keep in mind, this is like generations of people. But God eventually did fulfill his promise. Now, I highly doubt it's the way anybody thought it would go down. I doubt that Abraham thought he would never, ever see it. I doubt Moses thought he would never, ever see it. Well, I guess he saw it. Technically, he saw it. But what does that mean for us? I'd like to hear about where you think in your life that maybe you need to have a little bit more patience with God. And maybe he's working on things and you just don't realize it. All right. Dear Father God, thank you for today. I pray you bless our country, Lord. I pray you watch over our nation as we kind of live in limbo right now, as we're dealing with questions, as we're waiting for responses, Lord. I pray you bless the kids that are watching this video, and I pray that you continue to help them and encourage them and let them know you're with them. In your name. Okay, have a great week. I will see you next week. Bye. And let me know if I can pray for you in any way.